Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Division One meeting. I'm glad to have everybody here. It looks like we've already got over 20 people, literally from around the world. I see that Gordy Robinson is joining us from the UK. Hey, Gordy, how are you? You guys can unmute yourself if you want to, and go ahead and we can share a little banter around. I've got it set where you can unmute yourself at the appropriate time. So I see everybody's opening up. Only thing I want to do is, if you would, if you've got a, what's wrong, David?
You want me to record?
It's recording right now already to the cloud.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so we'll just pull it down after that's over with. Okay.
Okay.
All right. The only thing I ask is, if you're unmuted, just make sure if there's any background noise, somebody comes into the room, dogs, cats, kids, whatever, you go ahead and mute yourself again to eliminate that thing. And Palmer, I don't know where we're watching back there in the background, but it looks interesting. So guys, we got a room packed with people and an agenda packed with a lot of different things today. Want to get started with a couple of announcements. The NMRA X, which Gordy is a key part of, along with Speed. There's several different things there. Mr. Petrarca is on here. Good morning, Bruce from Arizona. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How about you?
I'm doing wonderfully well, better than I deserve. Thanks for being here.
That's good. We're actually under 70 degrees this morning, so we're really thrilled.
So are we, and it's a little cool front has kind of snapped through here, so weather's nice over here. It's not really sultry this morning. We've got a NMRA X event today. This afternoon at 5 p.m. is going to be Ask the MMR, and the regional president from the LSR, Chuck Lynn, is going to be on there. Pete Leach from the LSR is going to be on there. John Fararka from the Northeast region is going to be on there. But Bruce Petrarca right here, the gentleman that's joining us, Mr. DCC MMR, is also going to be on there. Bruce, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are going to be doing this afternoon?
Well, I'm not completely sure, but it should be fun. We had a little bit of a roundtable amongst three of us last night. Chuck wasn't there, but it was really. I've tended to stay away from some of these Ask the MMR events because they all seem to be pretty similar. This should be vastly different in that I've had my MMR now for 4 years, and I'm close to I don't know about Chuck, but I'm the closest to the oldest. I'm the oldest of the three that was there last night. Let's put it that way, as far as the date of my MMR. And so these are people have been through the process in the last 2, 3, 4 years, as opposed to people that, we just finished one here in the region who got his golden spike in 1990. So, it's so I think you're going to have a new and different perspective on the NMRA and the MMR process and other things, and maybe some different viewpoints on tips and techniques of how to do things this afternoon. So I think it's going to be fun. Good.
And just to fill you in, Chuck is one of the 3 people in the Lone Star region that has all 11 certificates. Mr. Packer, who's also on our board, on our call right now, is also one of those individuals that has all 11. And Chuck's had his MMR number is below. Dwayne, help me out. What's his number?
I don't know. Dad's is 345, and he got his the same year as Dad, I believe.
So he's in the 300s somewhere.
Lauren Neufeld is the other one with all 11, and you left out Mr. Schoenberg, who just recently got all 11.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Jerry.
It's on the
Jerry
website.
Just got his 11th. Yeah. So that's right. So we've got 4 that have all 11 right now, and I believe Dwayne is about to get his knocked out as well for all 11.
Yeah, we're starting to close the gap a little bit. Yeah.
Good deal. Good deal. Also on Gordy, do you have anything you want to add about today's NMRAX event?
No, I can't wait. All I have to do is ask the questions, which is great. It's the best seat in the house, really. Not having to think of the
Deal.
answers.
Good
But
deal.
yeah, we've got another event coming up in a few weeks' time as well. We're back with the live clinics on the 26th of September, and it'll run from 11. It's Eastern time, or it's Europe Central, so I think it's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's 11 a.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. So I think that's right. 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And and so far I jotted it up the other day for the SER's regional magazine that we've done 178 hours of unique content, which is non-repeated content since April. So 135 different members of the NMRA and non-members as well have given clinics. So it's been great. And as I say, on every meeting I attend, if you want to get involved and give a clinic, you can get volunteer points, or you can get author points for it. So at a national level, so, get in touch and let's get you on there. And if you're an MMR and you want to be in the panel of any future Ask the MMR, then get in touch with me. Or Speed, your man.
Speed from the Division 3 of the LSR is the scheduler, and he handles all that stuff. So if you want to get in on that, you want to do a clinic, you want to be a part of the panel, let me know. I can get you in touch with Speed, and we can make that happen. Also, shameless plug here for Gordy. Gordy is running for president of the NMRA. Gordy, do you know if there's anybody running against you right now? But we still need to vote for you if you're so inclined.
I appreciate it. I don't know at the moment. It's
Okay.
still open for nominations till the end of October.
Till the end of October. Okay, good deal. Good deal. Well, we wish you luck. I know I'm going to give you my support, so that I don't know. That's one vote you've got anyway. So 2 if you vote for yourself. Okay. Hey, don't laugh about it. There was a guy in our region who was elected division director because he voted for himself. So there you have it. Okay.
And it was a tie until he did that.
It was a tie until he voted for himself. So yeah. And I'm not going to tell you how many votes were in the tie either. Let's see here. We have been asked the question several times. When are we going to go back to face-to-face meetings? Guys, right now, I think that maybe we will have the Christmas party and resume back in January. I think that's probably a prudent thing to do. We're taking a look at where we're going to be having the Christmas party. David, have you been able to reach Venus and talk to her about that yet?
I've not been able to nail her down yet, Mike. Sometimes she just doesn't return calls.
Oh no, I'm familiar. Yeah.
But I'm on that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I had no doubt. I just was getting an update, so I didn't think you weren't taking care of that. Fortunately, we're in a position with Joe Lysing. Joe, can you unmute yourself there, please, sir? Joe is our program manager for the division, and the programs that we have set up. Can you run through those real quick for the rest of the year, Joe?
Yes, sir. Next month, we have John Garfield and Ken Kaiser sharing their slide presentation from the Canadian Rocky Mountain Railway.
Just click on the link on the email I sent you yesterday.
And then for November, we have Mr. Corley. And give me a second, I'll pull up that subject matter. And then, of course, right now, just for December, we have the Christmas party. So if we don't have the Christmas dinner, then we'll need to get something for that. Above and beyond that, the only thing that we have is someday, one day, maybe we'll have a scratch building a flat car clinics. So if anyone would like to put on a clinic and share your knowledge with the group, we'd certainly love to hear from you.
Guys, Dwayne, I'm going to kick it over to you. I'm trying to get some stuff set up here for Bob Brendle here, who's one of our presenters today. Can you talk to us a little bit, Dwayne, on AP and things like that, things we got going, please?
Certainly. I'm going to make my usual pitch to everybody, but we've actually had a fairly active couple of months. We've done some with the oncoming of COVID. We now have the ability to do some things remotely. Unfortunately, motive power structures and cars, unless we can take a look at it and it's going to score about above 110 to 115, there's not a lot of point in trying to do it remotely. National doesn't. We've experienced some things in testing that has just left us with an inability to handle very tight judging type of things, evaluations. Now, things for civil, electrical, scenery, prototype modeler, all of that can be done remotely. Chief dispatcher obviously doesn't need to have anything demonstrated. It's just logging your paperwork and sending that in. So if you have some things that you've got, Golden Spike's another one. We did Dennis's Golden Spike remotely. So, you know, it's something that can be done. If you're interested, please give me or Mike a call, and we can make some arrangements to get that taken care of for you. It's one of those things that can be done safely, can be done, you know, via a outlet just like this. We can do it, set up a Zoom call. Mike can set this up, and we can all get on board and take care of that. But we've had a fairly active couple of months within the AP. I don't have a list here in front of me. I could cite you numbers and names and all of that, but was having some problems getting my cameras working this morning, so I was fighting that and not finishing getting ready. But I think we had 6 certificates last month, I believe, went up, and we've got 2 more already lined up to go this time. So yeah, I really encourage you guys, if you've got any interest in it at all, please reach out and talk to me. This doesn't have to be something that you have to enter a contest. It doesn't have to be something that you've got to bring it up to the meeting. If you want to have it judged, you know, remotely, if you want to have it judged in, you know, in person, and in your own home, we can do that too. This doesn't have to be a situation where it's you against the world. It's this, even in a contest environment, it's always healthy to think of this as you against you. It's how well can you do? How well can you build it? How well can you score? And let the contest take care of itself. That's kind of how I've always approached it. And I've had a really good time doing that. I have learned so much just hanging around the contest room, reading the write-ups of the entries and seeing how people did things. You catch somebody and get to talking with them. It's, oh, is that one yours? Yeah. Oh, how did you do this? And, you know, they'll sit down and go through everything they did to do the rust or do the weathering or whatever the case may be. So there are a lot of opportunities there to learn. And all you've got to do is just step in the room and take advantage of them. I mean, even just looking around the room and looking at the various models and really taking a good hard look at them, you can learn an awful lot from that alone. So like I say, I highly encourage everybody to get involved in the AP. It will make you a better modeler. I guarantee it will. It's a perfect learning process. It can be done step by step, piece by piece. You can take as long as you need. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. If for some reason it doesn't merit, we'll point out what's wrong with it. We can show you where you can do these differently, where it can be fixed, things like that, and you can have it judged again. So it's something that can be done, you know, multiple times, and you know, until it gets it right. So and the biggest thing, and I know you guys have heard me say this before too, 87.5 out of 125 is 70%. So in theory, if it's C- or better, you're in. So really give that some thought. I mean, if you've got something running at home right now, you may have a really big start on it and not even know it. I mean, even as simple as a 4x8 in HO is 32 square feet. If it's fully scenic, that's enough for scenery. If you hand laid any of the track, you might have civil. If you've got anything in it beyond just a loop where you've got some turnouts and things involved, you may have electrical already. So there's a lot of things, depending on what you've built, what you've scratch built, things like that, that you could be very far down the path and not even know it. You can also get credit for work you're doing up at the club. If you've got a section of that layout that you're responsible for say scenery, for example, if you can show from this point to this point was mine, and even if it's 2 or 3 of those sections, if you've got 8 or 10 feet over here and 10 or 12 feet over there, and we add it all up and it comes up to 32 square feet, you're in. We just need to have somebody verify that, yep, Trapper did these pieces over here and these pieces over there, and we've done all the math and done all the measurements, and boom, it's 32 square feet. Great. Then he qualifies. So keep that in mind as well. So really give it a pitch. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. My numbers are on the website. You guys have probably got my email. If you don't, I can give it to you. Mike's got it. It's all over the LSR website as well. My phone numbers and emails are on there. So reach out with any questions. It looks like Mike's
Dwayne?
still. Yes, sir.
Let me share a little experience here. I'm the
Sure.
AP manager for the Arizona division,
Right.
and I started a AP newsletter in August, and I got an email a couple of days, a week or so later, and since it's out the first part of August, and this fellow says, I think it's time for me to get my MMR, and so I'm getting ready to do this whole thing about what it's going to take to get there. Well, cutting to the chase, in August, he got his Golden Spike, author, scenery, structures, and electrical.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a plan together. He needs a couple of signatures and his string diagram for his chief dispatcher. And he's needs to build some cars and build some track work for his civil. And he's got his MMR.
Yep.
And he's been in the organization a little over a year, and so that's kind of the kind of things that can happen. And and by this way, this was all in N scale.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen the pictures there. That's a nice layout too. There really is.
Oh, it
There's a
is.
lot going on in a small space. Yeah, we
Yep.
had a similar situation here in the Dallas area. There's a gentleman named Lloyd Kaiser, super, super nice guy, and one of the most talented modelers I've ever met. He's written several books on the railroad of his choice, and it is a set of phenomenal books. He's done a ton of research, and all of that research kept delaying his work in the AP. And I kept on him, and he asked me one night when I was kind of needling him about getting back to work on it, and he said, "How close are we to 400?" I said, "Very." And I said, he said, "Are you hoping to get number 400?" And he goes, "Yeah, I really would, because that was the train number for whatever their big passenger train was." And I said, "Well, we're going to need to get some stuff judged here pretty quick." And I told him, I said, "If we need to, I can say the word, I will bring a judge and I will bring the paperwork." So we made the arrangements, and I went over to his house with a stack of every AP certificate form possible and multiples of all of them. And Jerry Hoverson and I went over there. We walked in the door. He had none. When we left, he was MMR. He had already done that much work. And going through and evaluating or going through and verifying some of his score sheets, he had perfect 125-point scores from national competitions, national contests, several of them, not just one, but several of them. Hand-laid crossings on a curve built right there on the bench. And just absolutely flawless. I mean, at one point, I've literally got my finger on a truck, and I've got my eyes closed, and I'm just running it back and forth through the diamond. And Jerry looks at me and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm trying to figure out where the crossing is, because I don't feel it. It was that smooth." And I mean, I ran it back and forth both ways, and you couldn't tell with your eyes closed when the truck went over the diamond. Just phenomenal work. But he had spent so much time working on those books, and his wife was in ill health, and he was taking care of her. And it was something that, like for most of us, there are certain things that just hit the back burner, and home life and family and everything obviously come first. And but he was kind of finally at a stage where we could work through a lot of it. And like I say, he went from nothing to all 7 in one night. So,
And Dwayne, you might share the story of how we just got through judging in Mexico City.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go into that one too. Mike and I, in the subject of doing things remotely, Mike and I took part in a remote judging for a member that we have who lives about 45 minutes to an hour north of Mexico City. In fact, he might be one of maybe 2 members we have in all of Mexico. But he is working on his MMR. He came up to Round Rock a few years ago for our convention and was awarded his civil certificate. Yeah, we were joking that he wanted to make sure he got that one first because he is the civil engineer for the town that they live in. He actually works for the city. He wanted to make sure he got that one first. I was giving him a hard time because you know how it goes. The mechanic's car never works. The dentist's kids have all got cavities. The cobbler's kids don't have shoes, that kind of thing. And he said, yes, he had that in mind. So he wanted to make sure he got that one nailed down first. But via remote evaluation, we were able to finish off his electrical and his scenery. His daughter, bless her heart, is bilingual, and she acted as interpreter for us. And I just received paperwork from her, by the way, Mike. So I've got that in the hopper. We're working with them to try to do some more things as much as we can remotely. At some point, we're probably going to have to go down there, or some judges are going to have to go down there. He has some friends in the South Texas area that have gone down to his house a few times, and we may have to arrange a trip to go down there and actually do a few things in person. But
I'd hate that.
That'd be awful, wouldn't it? His layout is huge.
And guys, being a civil engineer, most of us, when we're building structures, you put off the bridge. The bridge is the one that's going to give you a hard time. You ought to see the bridges on this guy's layout. They are absolutely flawless. They are modern. There's trestles. There's everything. There's
even the highway bridges.
Everything. Highway bridges that look like something you'd see on a freeway in an architectural design. It's just amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's got an observatory set up on top of one of the mountains. It is really neat. He's got a section of the layout where the scenery comes running up. Now you walk all the way around and inside his layout. And he's got a piece where the scenery runs up toward the fascia on the outer perimeter aisle, and then it runs up and over. So you actually walk through the mountain. And it's scenic on the inside as well. And when you're on the inside, there's an opening and you can see the trains going by through the tunnel. But it is really nicely done. There's still a lot of work to go because, again, this thing is huge. I want to say it's 30 meters wide and like 60 meters long or something like that. I mean, this room is huge. His brother-in-law is a welder. So the bench work is welded angle iron. I mean, you could park a truck on his bench work. He's got a roundhouse that he is doing that is a replica of the one for the NDM, I believe, is the railroad in their area. But when they built that roundhouse for real, they had been in a large project to replace the light iron with heavier rails so they could get some bigger locomotives in there. They took all that light iron and used it and welded it together into bents. And then, so you've got the outer wall, and then you've got between stalls 1 and 2 of a roundhouse. Well, there's another bent, and then between 2 and 3, there's another bent, and so on. All of that was actually welded up frames of old railroad rail, and all the way around, and then they sided the 2 outers in the front and back. Well, when he built it, he did the same thing. He took some code 55, I believe it was, some smaller rail, and soldered all of it together. But then to take it to a step, and the reason why I really wanted to bring this up is he then wired and powered each of the bents. So the outer wall being bent 1, and then between stalls 1 and 2 would be bent 2, and so on, right? So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on are positively wired. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 are negatively wired, and then his lights are just wired from bent to bent to complete his lighting circuit, and it is completely lit. He's got almost all the interior detail in it. He's got some roof left to put on it, but I've encouraged him through his daughter to look at that one as his prototype scene
For his prototype modeler.
Yeah, for prototype modelers. So we've got a plan mapped out for Ezekiel to finish off MMR. He's going to have to do author, a lot of his volunteer stuff, unfortunately, because there's really no NMRA presence down there. None of the events that he did were NMRA involved. So unfortunately, those can't count.
And Gordy, we would encourage him to do NMRA X stuff, but unfortunately, he's only speaks Spanish.
So,
and with most of the rest of everybody viewing speaking English, then it would be a little bit more difficult.
no problem.
Not a problem for you?
No.
Do
Okay.
we have an interpreter
You can always get him,
other than his daughter?
Eduardo, in Mexico City.
Oh, there we
Okay.
go.
All right, maybe that'll work.
Yeah, I mentioned that to
Possibly make it
Speed.
work.
Yeah, I spit that to Speed the other night. Maybe we can get Eduardo and Ezekiel together, and Eduardo can go up, and Ezekiel can kind of host, and Eduardo can do the camera and the interpretation kind of thing. Maybe that might work out.
Yeah, Eduardo would love it. And listen, it's not a problem. It's just yet another opportunity to impress. So, of
You
course, we
bet.
can get it done.
You bet.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot that is still to be done. There's a lot of scenery that still needs to be done. There's, a lot of structures still to build. Because again, that layout is a monster. So he's actually hosted a couple of national conventions down there, several train shows. He's helped out with a bunch of them. Just unfortunately, they weren't NMRA related shows. So all that volunteer work, unfortunately, doesn't count. But I ran that one up the flagpole with National to see if we could get some sort of special dispensation for that, since there's no other opportunities. So we're going to be working with him on doing a lot of author work. So we'll see how that one goes too. But at any rate, again, if you've got any questions, please reach out. I'm willing to help you out any way I can. If you're giving it some thought, give me a ring, because I can point you in some directions you may not have thought about. We can talk about the process and help you set out a plan. This is like anything else. There's a goal at the end, and there's certain steps to reach to get there, and I can help you put that in order. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Thanks, Dwayne. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Right now, does anybody have anything for show and tell? Anybody at all? Raise your hand. Nobody? Nobody show and tell. I'll jump in here a little bit with mine. There was several people have come over recently to my layout. I've gotten some part of it up and running. About a third of it, I guess, is up and running. And Mr. Palmer will be happy to know that I have completely decided to change the track plan now. So no, he gives no reaction whatsoever.
No, he's given a reaction. He's
Yeah, he
reaching
gave
for
a
a knife
reaction
to
just
slit
then.
his
I just
wrist.
saw it. It was the eyes just rolled. Actually, Jeff, you'll be happy to know there are no more three-way turnouts on the layout. They have been removed and been replaced in the process of getting that done. So those problem children that we had, the two places where we had three-way turnouts, are now gone. And so the main yard is now coming back together again, and it's going to be much more reliable, and it's going to allow my steam engines to operate through the yard where they weren't being able to make those turnouts with those three-ways. So those are gone. But that should be back operational again this afternoon. Speed came over the other day, helped me with some wiring issues that I had. So I can't wait for you guys to come over. We'll have a meeting over here or an open house or something, let you guys make a tour of the little layout that I've got. Some of you've already seen it. Some of you've operated on it, but we'll make sure that we can get some more people over here pretty soon. Tips and tricks. Dwayne, you got anything you want to throw in for tips and tricks?
Nothing new that I can think of off the top of my head. No, sorry. I haven't done a lot of modeling in the last few weeks, so I can't think of anything.
I understand. You've been working on your wood shop out there.
Yeah. Spent a lot of time out there.
Mr. Pearson, step forward, Mr. Pearson. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me your best track laying tip that you can give out to somebody. Unmute yourself. I think you just, there you are.
There we go. Good morning. Best track laying tip. Look out for S-curves. Make sure that if you have to put one in, as scenic as they are, that you at least have a straight
Run out
section.
there in the shop. Remember the yellow
equal to the length of your longest car between the two curves.
Say that one more time.
If in fact you decide to have an S curve on your railroad, of which obviously crossovers are one, which you can't get around, make sure that you put a straight section between the two curves that's equal to at least the length of your longest car.
Gotcha. That makes good sense. That way your car's not trying to bend back on itself with the spine and
Yes.
underneath the truck. So
The analogy is, as we were growing up as children, it was a lot easier to pull the wagon than to push the wagon, and so
Yep.
because it would go caca.
Yep, that's it.
I can tell you, I can add something to that. I was at a train show once, and when I was first getting into narrow gauge, and a very good friend of mine was running a booth, and I said something about getting into HON3, and he goes, "Well, here, I have something for you that I can't sell," and he gave me 5 of these little brass track gauges. Always, always, always double check these gauges with your NMRA gauge. And I'll tell you why. All 5 of them are narrow. They're all too tight. None of these are in gauge. Not a one of them. So I don't know where he got them.
And they're not narrow gauge.
Yeah, they're even too narrow for narrow gauge. How sad is that? I did think of one thing I wanted to share, and hopefully my son's going to bring it at some point, but I found a level here the other day over at Home Depot. Now, we've talked in the past about the plumber's levels that have instead of having, you've got one in the middle for horizontal, you got one on one end for vertical, and then instead of having the 45, this one has another one that is just slightly off plumb for level. And on a plumber's level, it's got a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And each one of those is a % of grade. So here it comes. When you bring a plumber's level in and you set it on your grade, if the edge of the bubble is touching the 1, then it's a 1% grade. If it touches the 2, it's a 2% grade, and so on. Now, those levels are a little expensive. A little torpedo level like that was almost $20. I think a little level this size, a little 2-foot level, as I recall, that one was $35 or $40. However, this is a Stanley I-Beam 180. And the reason I wanted to bring this one up is because this one here that is supposed to be the 45, and you really can't see it very well. You might be able to see it there now. Notice there's some print around this edge. This whole thing, you can grab the bezel and twist it to whatever degree you're looking for. Each mark on this one is 2%. This level is $11.99 at Home Depot. So if you can lay this one in here, you can twist the little dial until you get it, between 0 and 2, you get a 1% or close to 1%. You can dial it to a 2 and so on. And then when you set it on the track, you just look for the bubble to be between the lines like you normally would. And this will help you keep your grades going. And another one too, besides the S-curves, one of the most important things for you to do when you're laying track. I like my track to have a little bit of kink to it, a little bit of sway. When I'm laying my track, I offset the rails by about 1 inch. And then I put a few little random kinks in it because the real ones aren't straight. I mean, even ribbon rail is not straight. So I like to have it just a little bit of side to side motion to it. And I got a way I could tune that by watching the locomotive. You don't want too much because then your boxcars start doing this, which is prototypical. And I can show you videotape of them doing that. It looks bad on a model. However, a little bit of side to side is okay. Up and down is verboten. None, 0 up and down, because that's going to cause accidental uncouplings. Some levels have a machined flat surface on them. I build guitars, as most of you know, and one of the things that we have is called a leveling beam. You use that to level the tops of all the frets. I have an extra one of those, and what you do is it's about not quite this long, but it's about this width. You put some adhesive back sandpaper on this side of it. Or in this case, if you're using a level with a machined surface, you put the sandpaper on this. You lay that on your roadbed surface, your Homosote, your Mycore, whatever it is you're using, because trust me, Homosote isn't flat. Homo soap won't even be the same thickness from one edge of the beast to the other. It won't. It's just the nature of how it's made, what it's made of. It swells. It's just not a perfect surface. So you take this flat, long beam with a little bit of sandpaper on it and sand where your track is going to go, and you will get a nice flat surface. If you're hand laying your track, this is really, really important. Glue your ties down and then sand that back and forth to get the tops of your ties nice and level, and it will keep you from getting accidental uncouplings. So
Bruce is being so polite here. He actually raised his hand to ask a question.
No, that was a long time ago, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just now looked. Okay.
I've got anybody to put it down. Yeah.
Mike Walter, what do you got, bud? You got to unmute.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is part of the station I've been working on forever. This is, can you see it? This is the concourse that travels over the tracks from the station, and then it'll lead. This defect right here is where the covering over the staircase goes. Most of it's upstairs and too big to bring down. But this is how it's working. It's made with 1/4-inch plywood as a base, rail scale model brick veneer. And
How big is your layout, Mike?
Pardon?
How big is your layout?
It's 27 by 46.
So when Bruce is coming over to visit in November, want to make sure that we definitely get your layout on the visitation, if you don't mind.
I'll be happy to.
And Mr. Packer, the same thing. He was already scheduled to come see yours last time, but he had to cancel when he was coming over. Was it Labor Day, Bruce, that you were coming?
Yeah, just the week after. I should be coming home now if I had been able to get there.
Yeah.
So,
but we
right now
transferred that
things
to
are set up for mid-November.
Mid-November. So, Mr. Packer, if you don't mind, we might tap you again if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm always happy to have people come, just so I know they're coming before the doorbell rings.
Yep, that's it. So I'll give you plenty of notice. And Mr. Ross, we already had you on the schedule as well, so we'll put you back on the schedule. Mr. Crumpton, I've got a key. I can let him in to see the layout over at the club. So we've got to have several different things set up for him to go around and tour. Mr. Corley, glad you're here. I just saw you you popped in over here. Good. I'm glad you got your invitation and everything. Guys, I want to throw it over to another guest we've got coming in here. Whit, are you around?
Hey, before you go, let me add to what Dwayne was saying about sanding the ties. When I laid my hand-laid track, I pre-stained all the ties before I glued them down. And then, because there are going to be discrepancies in the gluing and in the thickness of the ties and everything else, after I had stained them and glued them down, then I came back and sanded, and I could see by the sanding when I had completed the sanding job, because if it was bare wood here and the next one was still brown, I knew that I had a variation in the height of the ties there. So I'd sand them until the top of all the ties showed bare wood. Then I'd go back and restain them before I spiked my rails down.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should have mentioned that, because
That is a good point.
Yeah, it's the same thing we do when we're leveling frets on a guitar. You color them in with a Sharpie, and then you start sanding on them. And you start looking for those low spots. So yeah, good point.
By the way, Jeff just gave me a chat a few minutes ago that I'm mentioning. Bruce, Chuck Lynn's MMR number is 310. So he's had his opportunity to be a MMR for quite some time.
That was actually what I was raising my hand about. So
You got Jeff's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd looked it up just before Jeff posted it.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay. Guys, we've got a guest from Birmingham, Alabama. His name is Whit Fancher. Whit has an online store, but he also he's one of my customers for Polyprinter. He's got a 3D printer. I think he's fixing to buy a second one, aren't you, Whit? I'm going to put you on the spot here.
That's the plan, yes.
That's the plan. Good deal. That was the right answer. I like it. So, Trapper's sitting there just shaking his head. You know, it's the salesman in me, Trapper. I can't get away from it. Palmer would appreciate that, right, Jeff? So.
Oh, absolutely. You know,
Hey, how's your eye, Jeff?
so far so good. It keeps,
Good,
you know,
good.
I've got 4 more weeks to go.
All right, good deal, good deal. Whit, I want you to tell us a little bit about your store and your some of your models, some of the things you're doing over there. Give us a little bit of information. You should have the ability to share your screen, and you should be able to
Okay.
give us some information there. So I'll let Whit, you take it away.
All right. Well, I see now that I can share the screen, so hopefully the photos will pull up when we need them. Anyway, first I want to thank Mike for contacting me and letting me talk about one of my favorite subjects, model trains, actually myself. But anyway, so I was just going to give a brief or kind of a description of who I am, where I am, what I do, and what have you. I've written a little thing here, so hopefully y'all don't mind if I do a little bit of reading. If you have some questions, just let me know, and hopefully I can either cover them, get to them, or answer them at some other time. First, I just want to say I'm the owner of Crown Landscape Services and also Locomotive Hobbies. Some people say I'm an SOB. It's not what you're thinking. I sell or buy model railroad items, and over half of my income actually comes from selling on eBay, which is really kind of remarkable. And I've been buying and selling on eBay since 1998, so I've been doing it for a little while. Originally, I was going to sell under the name of Locomotive, with locomotive being one word, hobbies. But my mom at the time said to change it to Loco-Motive-Hobbies, as loco means crazy. Motive is a reason, and so it was a crazy reason to sell model trains. I'm the president of the Wrecking Crew Model Railroad Club, and I'm also the superintendent of the Steel City Division of the SER. Unfortunately, the division right now, due to the pandemic, has not been very active at all. Here, as of recent, McWane Center is open back up. And so the Wrecking Crew, about a handful of members, sometimes half the members have actively been working on Saturdays on the layouts down there in preparation for the annual Magic of Model Trains show that McWane gives every year. The McWane Science Center, sponsors us there. That's our home base, if you will. And the show usually begins the weekend before Thanksgiving and ends the weekend after New Year's. The show usually brings well over 10,000 attendees each year, and it's surprising because the ages range, of course, from infants, really small folks in strollers, to sometimes there's people there that were over 100 years old. So you can imagine the stories that we hear from these individuals. The show is really only for display. We don't sell anything at the show. We usually have layouts there from Z scale to O scale. Historically, we've had a G scale layout or display set up, but as you know, G scale can eat up a lot of real estate really quick. As of recent, we've been working on ON30 logging layout that we actually are in process of building and bring up to the 3rd floor for the show. We usually have a lot of display cases at the show, which include, the displaying structures and locomotives and rolling stock, most of which were built from some of our, what I would call, beloved modelers who are no longer with us. I began selling model trains seriously in about 2000, after I moved back to Birmingham from Auburn, Alabama. One of the guys that was in our club put the bug in my brain that you can actually make money at selling model trains. Having just moved back to Birmingham to help care for my elderly father, it was an opportunity for me to make money in a hobby I loved. But how? Fortunately, another guy in our club was liquidating an estate from a fellow model railroader and was selling things at a bargain basement price at a local show. The prices were ridiculously low, so I bought them out. At that show, I stepped behind the table, changed the prices by virtually doubling everything on the table, and made some decent money. I think I actually left with money in my pocket and leftover product from my initial investment. I thought, hey, this may work. I then started buying out other vendors at shows and gained a reputation as one whose money was good and was willing to buy someone out. I still have that reputation at local shows, even though I no longer sell at them. I also purchase estates for what I feel is a fair price, and I try to explain my offer to those individuals thoroughly prior to taking an inventory of the items and making an offer. I also explain that they have some gravy and anchors, and if they decide to sell some of the items and later, want me to make good on my initial offer for the remainder items, I'll have to reevaluate the remainder items of the estate, since what was sold is usually the gravy portion of the estate, as y'all know. This happens more frequently than you think, as many feel that since the item is old or vintage, i.e. 1950s to 1970s, it's worth a small fortune. But as you know, that's just not the case. The good thing about being an SOB is due to the sheer quantity and variety of things I purchase, I've been able to purge some of my collection and narrow my modeling focus. For what it's worth, I got bit by the narrow gauge bug several years ago. I got bit hard, and my interests are now focused on modeling true HON2, not HON 2.5, not HON 30, not HON 3, but true HON2. There's no products out there available in HON2. Since I've not set up a layout yet, I'm learning that HON2 is getting smaller each time I model it. And so I'm actually starting to lean towards SN2 and ON2, true narrow gauge.
Whit, if I could interrupt you just for a second.
Yes, sir.
Mike, Mike Ross goes up to Maine every year and works on the actual railroad, the HON2 railroad up there. And
does he really?
Yeah, Mike, are you there? Where are you, Mike?
I am. It's not HON2. It's standard gauge. Yeah, I didn't mean to say HON2. I meant to say standard 2-foot gauge rail up there in Maine. Did you actually rebuilt some cars up there the last time you went, didn't you? That's right. And I think there's some other 2-foot people here. At least it gets us out of the Texas heat.
There you go.
The main pool.
So anyway, I wanted to share that with you. I thought you'd find that
interesting. Yeah, because I'd love to find time to go up there and actually do some work. And actually, I'd like to take a lot of pictures of the detail pictures on a lot of the rolling stock and stuff for accuracy.
I bet you,
because I love the history, and actually I like doing the research on a lot of this items. I'll burn more time with doing research on stuff than I usually do the actual modeling of the item itself.
Well, I'll bet you that if you want to go up there, we've got the connections that we can make it all come together for you. I bet through Mike right there.
I may hold your feet to the fire on that one.
No problem.
So,
I'll let you continue.
All right, now back to the story. What to do with all this inventory I procured from our fellow club member? The Great American Train Show, GATS, showed up in our town, so I purchased a booth of 3 tables. I filled them, and as you might guess, I bought out several vendors at that show and quickly ran out of room. About this time, my father passed away, which freed up some of my time. I was also beginning to cut grass, as numerous friends of my parents thought they were, quote, helping me out by getting a dependable lawn service, me, to do their work. I still have some of those customers from 2000. After my father's passing, it freed up time, and I signed up with GATS in Greenburgh to do out-of-town shows, as well as other shows I felt would pay off. Two-day shows usually worked better for me, as I could drive to the show and set up on Friday, work the show on Saturday, and share some stories with other vendors, have drinks and a super meal since it was all a tax write-off, and enjoy a good night's sleep. Sundays were always slow, but I'd at least be rested, and the drive home was easier. Doing a one-day show was always a killer, especially setting up 20-plus tables, 4-foot by 4-foot wide display boxes with lighting, working the show all day, and then trying to break it down and drive home at night. I digress again. One of the guys in the club also helped me at shows, as well as my best buddy, Tiger, my puppy dog, the greatest and smartest dog I've ever known, who understood most things being said. And he would look at you like you're crazy if you call something the wrong name, even treats or food. He was truly as a godsend. And as I had lost 3 dogs in Auburn years ago, he showed up at my show a few days after losing the third day, at my shop, a few days after losing my third dog. I truly feel that our good Lord sent me a best friend, and I was blessed to have Tiger for 14 full years. Tiger was with me all the time, and the neat thing is, most all of the shows would allow me to bring him in the hall and keep him in the utility or storage room. Tiger went home a little over 9 years ago, and I still miss him every day. I look forward to reuniting with him and my other precious puppy dogs I was blessed with sometime in the future. I have fond memories of the shows, and I miss the camaraderie we had with other vendors and buyers. I sold at shows from as far south as Lakeland, Florida, west to Mesquite, Texas, and north to Rock Island, Illinois. I think I did 26 shows one year, which was entirely too many, so I dropped the show schedule down to 14 to 20 shows. I was usually one of the larger vendors at the shows, near the front, as I usually had well over 21 tables, which was 7 booths at the Great American Train Show, with the display cases, overhanging lights, and a huge inventory of Athearn, MDC Roundhouse, and Funaro and Camerlingo kits at the time. As you know, GATS began to decline in attendance, and show sales just weren't there anymore. The Funaro sales at these shows were usually really good, since I was the only vendor selling those kits. Unfortunately, many people were not familiar with Funaro and Camerlingo kits. I always hated selling at a show, having about 3 tables tied up with the Funaro and Camerlingo kits when Sharon and Steve were selling at the show. I never agreed with them that they should be selling their product offering a buy one, get one free or BOGO offer. I understand why they were promoting their product like this, but it wasn't uncommon for buyers to tell me that they would wait until Funaro and Camerlingo was at a show to make their purchase. Rats. All of the manufacturers I know who sell at shows usually sell at retail only, which makes it fair for other legitimate sellers at the shows who sell that manufacturer's product. Fortunately, many times, due to my inventory on hand, I still had sales of the Funaro kits, even when Sharon and Steve were at the show, because they had sold out of the kit, or I had kits that were no longer in production, that people would buy. Who is Funaro and Camerlingo, you ask? How did I get hooked up with Funaro, you ask? I met Sharon, Steve, and little Stevie, now a grown man, at a local show around 2001 or so. I was intrigued at their product, the level of detail, and the uniqueness of their product. Steve Funaro has been doing modeling forever, having made boats and model trains early on. Sharon Camerlingo married Steve, and they changed the name from Funaro Scale Models to Funaro and Camerlingo, from my understanding. As a side note, Sharon Funaro is actually related to Don Tichy. Thus, the detail parts, the Tichy detail parts, and sprues of brakes and stuff in the Funaro and Camerlingo kits. Imagine that. According to the FNC website, and I quote, Funaro and Camerlingo are American manufacturers of finely detailed HO gauge scale model resin craftsman kits of rolling stock, including freight cars, passenger cars and trolleys, building structures, and miscellaneous accessories for U.S. prototype railroads. Some S and O scale freight cars kits are also manufactured. Our kits span the time from 1890s to present, with emphasis on the transition era, 1940s to the late 1950s, and are geared towards serious modelers and hobbyists. When I first started selling Funaro and Camerlingo kits, I was a little ticked, as they did not include trucks, wheels, weights, or couplers, but it didn't take long to understand why. Some modelers prefer sprung trucks, some solid trucks, some metal wheels, a few plastic wheels. Some people like the KD couplers, some people like McHenry couplers, and the list goes on. We hit it off instantly as I asked all kinds of questions about the kits, the history behind the kits, what it takes to build one, and purchased who knows how many kits at their buy one, get one free show special price. Again, I figured, wow, I can buy this kit for 50% off, resell the kit at retail, and possibly double my money. My initial purchases from them were for Southeastern railroads, such as Southern, SCL, ACL, L&N, for example. It didn't take but a few shows to realize how many modelers here in the Southeast actually model something other than Southeastern railroads. We have lots of Pennsylvania modelers, B&M, Reading, PLE, Norfolk and Western, just to name a few. With this in mind, I needed to increase my inventory of Funaro and Camerlingo kits. Again, I don't do anything in moderation, and the only way to sell kits is to have them in stock. It's hard to sell something if you just don't have it sitting there for an impulse purchase. I also started giving a discount for multiple item purchases, which worked flawless, as the more you purchase, the greater discount you received. At the shows, occasionally, I would have someone ask about narrow gauge Craftsman kits, and guess what? Funaro and Camerlingo have them. I wasn't sure if the narrow gauge kits would sell, as no one was carrying them, and nobody was carrying on eBay or at the shows. So I purchased one or two of the kits, of each of the kits, as a test balloon to see how well they would sell. And guess what?
He's showing you something right there that he's on his screen. If you can see his screen with.
All right, let me scroll over here. Oh wow! And what is?
Yeah, that's one of their. That's a start of one of their HON3 short cabooses.
Oh wow! Neat. So, let's see. Where was I here? So I purchased one or two of each of the kits as a test balloons, and the kits usually sold out at every show. Wow. Moving along here, as I mentioned earlier, Gatz went out of business, and Greenberg cut back on their shows, and their table costs got out of sight for 20-plus tables. So I quit selling at the larger shows. I did some of the smaller shows, but stopped doing them as attendance was down, and I figured out that if I spent as much time going to, setting up, selling, breaking down, and driving home, I'd come out way ahead spending that much time listing items for sale on eBay. Plus, I found a girlfriend, got married, now happily divorced. Long story here, but my conscience is clear, and I had biblical means for divorce. Now, back to Funaro and Camerlingo. As I said, I can't sell a kit if I don't have it in stock. I decided to carry at least one, and many two, and sometimes 10 or so of a kit due to their sales. For slow-selling kits, I usually keep one, but for Virginian battleship gondolas and some HD flat cars, I usually keep 6 to 10 in inventory, as it's not uncommon to sell several at the time. I usually keep 4 to 6 of each of the narrow gauge car kits in stock, because once again, many people will buy these cars in multiples. Funaro also makes a variety of detail parts, including concrete cinder blocks, and I'll show y'all some pictures here in just a second. Concrete cinder blocks, a really good seller. A variety of barrels, trash cans, propane cylinders, feed or seed bags or sacks, marble sheets, crates, solid and open slat, which is popular because of the void in the slats, and other HO scale detail parts. They also produce exclusively for me 27 different styles of trucks, including Buckeye, Pullman, Passenger, and others in HO, and a few in S scale. I try to keep about 24 sets of each of the varieties of trucks in stock, as many people also buy multiples of one type. Funaro and Camerlingo also make Plymouth and Caterpillar switchers for loads or operation in standard and narrow gauge, but you'll need to power the switchers if you want them to work. Now let's see if I can get some quick pictures here. Zoom would like to, yes. And bear with me just a second here. All right, I'm just going to scroll through a couple of these. All right, hold on. All right, I'll push a button and everything goes. All right, are any of these coming through?
No, sir.
All right, maybe I have to click the, all right, bear with me here. Okay, and done. Okay, is that showing through?
Yes,
Yes,
it
sir.
did until you spoke.
Okay, that's the Buckeye trucks, for instance. You know, this is one of the passenger coaches that they sell. It's a good seller. This is showing the you know, the one-piece body casting, which is really neat that I'll go
It's
into
not
here.
showing anymore, Whit.
Oh, it's not.
Nope.
Let's see here. I wonder if I.
It is on my
did that-
screen.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
seeing
I'm
it.
seeing them.
Oh,
All
okay.
right, are you seeing the Stillwell coach right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that showing the body of the Stillwell?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so it's actually coming through. So that's showing, yeah, they've really come a long way over the years, and I'll go over that in just a second. That's some SN2 arch bar, you know, trucks that would fit on the Sandy River, and, you know, some of the narrow gauge HON2 or, you know, cars. Hopefully this is still going through. There's some more of the HON or HO scale 6-wheel trucks that they produce. Really nice detail on these things. Of course, you have to do a little bit of flash cleanup. Of the trash can showing?
Yes.
Okay. So we can see the trash cans there, some of what they do. It takes, you know, the resin castings, doesn't take a whole lot to clean those guys up. There's the concrete cinder blocks, which everybody loves. They're really, really neat. Of course, all these detail parts are only in HO scale. Why they don't increase, you know, produce them in different sizes, I don't know. This is just one of the one-piece body boxcar kits. You can see it's really pretty simple. You have the one-piece body that we'll go into here in just a minute, and some of the detail parts and stuff there. You know, kind of give you an example of what the one-piece body kits are. And I guess that's all for that. And let's stop sharing, and then let me move on here. According to Sharon Funaro, I'm the largest reseller and have the largest inventory of any of their products of anyone in the world. There are other sellers out there, but no one has at least one of each of the kits in current production, and many of the kits which have been discontinued, and they'll be sold until they're gone. Presently, I have 1,580 Funaro and Camerlingo items in stock, but who's counting? The only drawback to the Funaro and Camerlingo kits is their instructions. Years ago, the instruction sheet was short and difficult to understand. Most of the Funaro and Camerlingo kits I built years ago, and even some of them today, the first thing I do is just discard the instruction sheet. Not really. But I put the instruction sheet on the side and build the car on what I call feel of what goes where and why. I usually do some detailed research on the car prior to building it, so I know it inside and out and have a full understanding of the prototype before modeling it. I really enjoy the research on the car and probably spend several hours learning about the car by downloading photos, ordering books, or what have you on the car to fully understand, you know, the building of the car. Maybe I'm OCD, probably so, but I'll admit I'm a rivet counter in many respects. On just about every kit I've built, I modify the kit somewhat to match the prototype, as their kits, even though super detailed and accurate, many of the small details will be missing or incorrectly located, at least by my perception. Back on the instructions, Funaro and Camerlingo has really improved and rewritten many of the instructions in the kits. It's not uncommon now to have instructions with step-by-step directions with small thumbnail photos to show the procedure for assembly and hence to make things work. The revamping of the instructions and retooling of the kits from flats to one-piece bodies has really increased their sales, as many people are no longer scared to build a kit. Oh, yes, what's the difference between a flat and a one-piece body? Over the decades, most of the kits produced by Funaro had flat sides and ends, and you had to glue the sides to the ends of the car, trying to make sure that everything was square. You then had to work with and sand the roof to fit into your rectangular body with square corners. only to find that you goofed somewhere. One side was a fuzz longer than the other due to sanding or some other minuscule discrepancy. Many people would really get frustrated until they actually built a few of these flat kits and got the hang of it. One trick was to sand both sides flat together, back to back, as well as the ends, to make sure that everything was the same and each piece was identical on the sides and the ends. Most of the current production kits, including some of the older kits, have been retooled. So the kit has a one-piece body casting, as seen in the pictures we just saw a second ago. You no longer have to worry about squaring the corners or aligning the roof or the base, depending on the kit, during the assembly. The one-piece bodies are real time savers, and many of these kits are much easier to build as the hard work has been done for you. Also, the price of these one-piece body kits are more expensive than their, quote, flat counterparts. There are many F&C Craftsman resin kits out there, which I feel could be considered an introductory type kit, as there are very few parts to glue. Some of these kits include the heavy-duty flat cars, which are really nice, nicely detailed, and some of the box cars, as you saw, where really all you have to do is drill holes, install grab irons, brake rigging, brake lines, and stuff like that. So, and let me see if I can get one little quick video just so you can see some of my lunacy here.
Well, we're going to have to wrap you up here in about another 5 minutes, partner.
Okay, well then, right, well, I'm just about done here. So I'll hold off on the video. Let me hit cancel here. How did I meet Mike Mackey? Mike came to our division for a presentation of 3D printing last October and brought with him a couple of machines for sale. I'd been doing research on 3D printers as well as research on laser engraving machines and had attended several clinics put on by Epilogue and others to get a feel for what was involved. Mike did an excellent job with his presentation, and after twisting my arm ever so hard for a millisecond, I purchased one of his machines. I currently have about 26 spools of filament in 18 different colors. I print various items in different colors depending on what the item is. My next purchase will be for a dual or multi-filament machine to reduce the cleanup of the parts due to the support for the item and the basis for the items. My labor is cheap, but my time is valuable. If I can reduce the cleanup time, it's the same as money in the bank. I currently produce several different animals, including pack mules, alligators, crocodiles, for example. I also produce different types of wooden pallets, including stringer and block. One of my best sellers is construction items, such as 3 sizes of traffic cones, barrels, etc. And I'll do those pictures real quick since it will take just a second here. Bop, 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 that. Come on, that, and done. And I'll scroll through these pretty quick. Can y'all see the alligators?
That looks pretty good.
Okie doke. There's some engine blocks, batteries. There's some of the pallets, more pallets, different alligators, construction, barrels, if you will, different cones, funeral cones, different scale traffic barrels, more cones. Stop sharing with that. The neat thing is once you create a file, you can print the item at any scale you want. I use the same file and simply reduce or enlarge the item size until it scales out exactly the size I want and then print them. Also, there are a few tricks to making the items look as smooth as a resin cast. So you don't see any of the 0.5 millimeter layers about the thickness of a human hair, and the layering actually feels about like rubbing your fingernail on your fingerprint. As I said, I produce many files for items, but you would be surprised how many files are available for download, which allow for commercial use. Yes, commercial use for resale. The alligators which I sell each have approval for commercial use attached with the file I downloaded. Why reinvent the wheel if someone has already done it for you? And you have written authorization to use their work for a profit. Doesn't hurt my feelings. I have hundreds, if not well over 1,000 files downloaded, many of which allow for commercial production of said item. The first thing I do after I download a file is look under the license portion of the download and see if it says commercial use is allowable. If it If it's allowable, it goes in one folder for future use. If the license says for non-commercial use only, it's either deleted or put in another file for future ideas. I appreciate Mike Mackey for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little about myself, some of the items I sell, and if I can be of assistance to y'all, just let me know. Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it, Whit. Thank you so much. Could you give us your email address and say, in case somebody wanted to get in touch with you directly?
Okay, let me give you a phone number and an email. The phone number is area code 205-746-0007. I'm a triple op. So if you call and I don't answer, just leave a message. The email is long, but it's simple. It's Crown Landscape Services @gmail.com, and that's CROWN Landscape, LANDSCAPE, Services, SERVICES, and that's @gmail.com. And I'm also on eBay under Loco-Motive-Hobbies, HOBBIES. And the easiest way to locate my eBay store is if you just simply type in LMH space patch, PATCH. It will literally pull up thousands of my patches on eBay, Google, any of the search engines. And that can actually direct you straight into the eBay store so you can pull up the Funaro products and any of the other patches or what have you.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Guys, if you've not seen a Dwayne put this over into the chat area, and so did Bob Thomas, and you've got the opportunity to hit your links there and take you in from the chat stuff to find Whit's stuff. Thanks again, Whit. We appreciate it. And now, without further ado, I want to bring in Bob Brendle. Bob is an excellent modeler, lives in Arlington, Texas. He's done clinics for the LSR and countless other places. He's been modeling for years. The only thing that we haven't got Bob to do is to get all of his paperwork turned in for all the certificates he's already earned towards his MMR. And one of the things that I wanted to show you guys here, let me switch to a different screen here, and I want to give you this view right here of my well, let's see here, transition, there we go. This is a building that I printed on the 3D printer, and everything you see right here is 3D printed. The crates, the barrels, even the building. And Bob built this and then turned around and made this building look like wood, even though it's plastic and 3D printed. Even down to the sheet metal roof on the back, the shed in the back, all of this stuff here that Bob has done to make this building look as accurate as it is. This is actually going on my layout. I'm thrilled about it. It's going to be the office for Davis Mineral and Mining. As you can see here, I've got the name of the building here, and Bob actually put that on there just like that. And we did that because I'm going to have the Davis branch going up to the Davis mine in honor of David Davis, a MMR that's passed away as part of the LSR. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over, and Bob, if you'll go ahead and give us I think you can start sharing your screen now, and we'll look forward to your presentation.
Okay. Go share. And let me get this. Can you hear me okay?
Probably turn up your volume just a little bit. There you go. And we're looking at your screen right now. We can see the entire screen there. There you go. Now you've got your PowerPoint. Very good.
Hey, yay, excellent. Okay, thank you. Bob Brendle. This is a clinic that I've given a couple of times, and Lone Star region several years ago. There's some new stuff in here, so don't doze off. there'll be new slides and some new tips in here. So if you've seen it before, there's a little bit new information. It's about aging and weathering styrene to look like wood. And like most narrow gaugers, I model an HON3. So a lot of the wood in my world looks like this. You know, it's weathered, it's exposed to the climate, to the extremes in climate in the mountains, and from the heat to the snow to the cold. So the wood is pretty aged and pretty worn. And I wanted to try to create that effect in styrene. And why the hell styrene? Well, first of all, several years ago, a friend of mine, Kendall Carmichael's an architectural model builder, does it professionally. And in the, he used to build them out of basswood and cardstock. And it's a pretty slow process. And he went into business for himself. I started talking to him. He started building them out of styrene. And he kind of educated me on the possibilities of styrene. You know, you can take a sheet of styrene and score it with the number 11 blade, and you don't even have to cut all the way through. You can snap it, and then you can bond it together. I use this solvent plastistrut bonding, but you use a solvent and the stuff goes together. You just kind of touch it together, put the solvent on it, and it sticks, and you're done. You can move on. So you don't have to wait for the material to dry, for the glue to dry. So for him, it was very good. So he could move quickly through an architectural model with the thing built. And time is money, and also there are all kinds of deadlines in that business. So I began to think about it. You know, we've all built models that were cars or airplanes, but that was kind of a different aspect of styrene. And I was trying to get a little more realistic, I guess, in my use of it. There's abundance of shapes and sheet stock out there. Between evergreen and plastistrut, you can find just about anything you need as far as the scratch building material. Scribe siding, clapboard siding, different, I think they have car siding, and all kinds of angles and shapes from plastistrut and from evergreen. The material's stable. You don't have to paint both sides of it. You know, you just paint one side. It doesn't warp, it doesn't delaminate, so it's a very stable material. And styrene's a chameleon. You can make it look like anything: steel, brick, wood. You know, the topic of our show today. Concrete, and clear styrene's glass. So you're using the same techniques to bond everything together. You're not dealing with metal or plastic or wood. You're using the same techniques and methods as you go through your model. And then there's an abundance of parts from Grant Line and Tichy, train parts. They're, you know, doors, windows, queen post, detail parts for your rolling stock. So that began to convince me that this was a pretty worthwhile way to go. Also, tons of buildings out there. Rebel, Atlas, Walthers, all have some very nice structures already available that they do look like plastic. That's kind of the problem with them, but they're inexpensive. You know, you can find kind of like on the bottom left picture, there's stuff from eBay. Some people have these kind of grab bags, and in that I see a lot of possibility. There's a Rico station there. It looks like some parts from the Rico station, a little house, and then a shop. So these are all very, very well detailed, and they're pretty cheap. You can get them on eBay and find them at the shows pretty cheaply. This is one of my favorite. It's another aspect of it. It's one of my favorite. Revell is one of my favorite manufacturers. They had an extremely talented designer there, Alan Armitage, and he created a lot of these little structures. So you can take some things and kind of repurpose them. I bought some of these little garages, and I'm turning them into handcar sheds with, you know, it's mostly just paint. Kind of cut the doors loose and reassemble. Added some Tichy hinges, butt hinges on there. And then the little chicken coop, I've bought a couple of those to repurpose those as make little offices out of them. Added some detail to them. There's a hole inside for the chickens to come and go through, so I close that up. But this was aged, and this will become a little office at an industry on the railroad. And tons of wood rolling stock. Little Overton coach there, or combine from model die casting, Bachman, a lot of model die casting roundhouse products out there. And the little water car, there's an old time piece of rolling stock from IHC. I don't think they're around anymore, but these pop up every once in a while on eBay. And again, you know, they don't have to be in perfect shape when you get them. You can get these and fix them up, and after the technique, it'll pretty much disguise any kind of flaws that run. There's a little coach that I made a closed vestibule. I think this is an Overton model die casting roundhouse coach. But it's pretty easy, as you can see, to make styrene look like painted wood, freshly painted wood. The prototype's on the left and my model's on the right. But that's kind of not what we want to do. The styrene comes, you know, it's too precise for what we want to do. It's too clean, it's too smooth, it's just too perfect for our world. So what we want to do is make that too perfect world a little more abused, a little more random and withered. This is the IHC old time water car kit. I bought this. This was kind of the genesis of some of these techniques. This was something I bought many years ago, and it came pre-painted, and it was just a little too perfect. It had this kind of nice weathered green color to it, but it was too smooth and too perfect. And I was looking at it and noticed the wood grain was actually there in the casting. It just, you couldn't see it. They'd kind of painted it out. So I grabbed a bottle of some paint I was using to paint figures with, the flesh color, and kind of peachy light flesh color, and dry brushed it, and kind of voila, you know, here comes the wood grain. You can kind of see the stuff. So with a little bit of effort, it really kind of popped this model out. I added the steel bands, just some wire, and weathered that, and then took a number 11 blade to the end of the tank and carved it up a little bit to rough it up a little bit, make it look a little more weathered. But it was kind of the beginning of some of these techniques. On the left is the real thing. That's the wood, some boxcar red wood that's been weathered, and I think that's a Colorado Southern cattle car, stock car at the bottom. And on the right is these are a couple of IHC gondolas. I have several of these, and this is after taking this technique to it, and it's a pretty good representation of what's on the left. You know, the styrene. I thought this comparison kind of showed how effective some of these techniques can be. For the purpose of the clinic, I kind of took two approaches. On the right, we have the little Atlas crossing shanty. So I used this kit as a basis for part of the clinic. And on the left, just going to scratch build a similar building from stock material, some evergreen and some plastic strut material, so that we can kind of compare the techniques. These are the tools that I use. The two phases to the process. One is the adding the texture, and the second phase is the painting. So to add the texture is kind of the most important thing. A lot of these kits come with wood grain in them, but it's too subtle for the weathering technique. So it needs to be kind of amped up, needs to be enhanced, and that's what we're going to do. Also, the kits, the castings, many times on the side of like a column or a beam, or there won't be any grain. They can't get it in. I guess you can't get it in and out of the mold. So that these are smooth surfaces, and those have to be kind of roughed up, and the grain even added in when it doesn't exist. So the main tool is the razor saw, X-Acto blade, razor saw there. Number 11 blade, some files, some sandpaper, and I use a fiberglass eraser, which is they're kind of dangerous. I don't recommend them. The bristles break off, get in your fingers, they hurt and stick around for a while. So it's kind of best to buy this distressing brush from Micromark. They have the distressing brush. Those are stainless steel bristles, stainless steel bristles, and they don't break off and get in your fingers. So if you're going to try this, I would use that. The sandpaper And the distressing brush or the fiberglass brush, after you've added the texture with the blade, it's very rough, so it kind of needs to be knocked down a little bit. So those help kind of remove some of the fuzz from the styrene after you've added the texture. And the second phase, of course, is painting and weathering. For the dry brushing, I use Tamiya XF15 flat flesh. It's an acrylic paint. You need this kind of peachy, fleshy color for the dry brushing. You can't use tan or beige. It's too quiet, shall we say. And the watercolor process that we use puts a film over this. So you kind of need the brightness. It looks kind of funny at first, but you kind of need the brightness from this flesh color to show through the watercolors when we add those. And then for the weathering, we use these watercolors. These are Cotman series from Winsor Newton. They're kind of an economical version of Winsor Newton watercolors. These are a couple of bucks a tube, I think. I get them here in Arlington and got them in Dallas at Easel Art, and they're probably available at just about any art supply store, probably online too. So they're not very expensive, and they last a long time. It doesn't take much to weather a building or a structure. We want to go from, like I said, we want to go from this on the left, the Too Perfect World, to what's a little more realistic to me, the textured, weathered look of the styrene on the right. So we're going to add the texture to it. First thing I do is take the razor saw to it and really kind of go after it. Styrene's very robust, it's very strong, so you really can't hurt it. It's hard to hurt it. So you can be pretty aggressive, and you kind of have to be to get the texture in there. On the clapboard siding, that was the Atlas kit, the little board and batten wall on the Atlas kit. This is the siding, the styrene siding, clapboard siding for the scratch build kit. First thing I did was add the texture to it. Then I came back and raised some of the boards, like they were warped and kind of peeling up. So I just took a number 11 blade and kind of carefully dug under one, went a couple of scale feet on it and raised it up. And then I put, lumber doesn't come, and it comes in 6, 8, 12 increments up to about 24 feet. So many of the buildings, the boards on the walls, it can't be a continuous piece. You just don't put up lumber that's 24 feet long either. It's hard to work with. So most of these models, and for this clapboard siding here, put a vertical joint in to kind of accentuate a few boards, kind of pick out that detail. And then to represent some maybe wood that's rotting away or kind of falling off, scooped out from one board to the next between the vertical joint. That kind of emphasized that detail. This is another kit. It's not a topic of this conversation, but it's board and batten siding. This was kind of a detail I used on this sand house that we did an article for HON3 annual last year, 2019. And it's the same kind of board and batten siding that's on the Atlas shed. So on here, I removed some of the battens with the number 11 blade and then replaced them with the 1x2 that had been given the texture with the razor saw. And of course, sometimes the battens fall off and you can see the exposed joint. So I kind of added that detail. So there's kind of a missing batten with the joint, and you can see a new warped batten added to the door there. And you can see the beginning of the texture. Also, the door castings, like the little doors and windows on this Atlas shed, they're just too perfect. So add texture to them, and I came back with the number 11 and carved some notches into it to represent where a cart maybe had run into it, or someone dragged some, slammed a barrel or something into the door. It kind of shows some weathering and texture there. So the other purpose of the two buildings is to kind of show the two techniques. One is the unpainted wood, and then painted wood. So we're going to kind of go down these two paths and show how to do both of these. After the texturing is all done, the next thing is to prime everything up. do what everybody does, wash it with water and some detergent, let it air dry. Because when you handle this stuff, you really get your finger, oils on there, and you don't need that for the paint to stick. So wash it, dry it, and then started out with Flocal primer, but now I've been using, since it's gone, Tamiya's light gray primer. It's a pretty close approximation. So you prime everything. And for the unpainted wood, this is kind of where you move on to the weathering process. For the painted wood, of course, after the primer's dried, you go back and paint it. This little building, the scratch building, was painted with reefer yellow. That's a Flocal color. And then zinc propionate primer, which pretty well represents a nice faded boxcar red. And with the yellow, the pure colors, like out of a bottle, it's just too bright. So I add white to kind of fade these colors immediately. Then the white door and window there from the Atlas, the kit shed. And like I said, for the dry brushing, use the Tamiya XF15 flat flesh, or some color like that, but some flesh color that you can use acrylic or enamel on this. And here's the dry brushed primed wall. You can see the texture, how the texture showing up, and the flesh color really begins to highlight the wood grain. And here's the same process on the wood, the painted structure, the scratch built structure. Dry brushed it, went ahead and put it together, then dry brushed it. With this on the shed, there was a little decal, so this was the time to add the decal to it. Then we move on to the weathering. This is, like I said, these are Winsor Newton Cotman series watercolors. I use Chinese white, lamp black, raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna for the weathering. And I just squeeze out some. This is a lid to a peanut can, I think. Just use that as my palette and squeeze a little bit out onto the to that. Watercolor, I was taught to use this in school for architectural renderings. I hated it. It doesn't go where you want it to. It's got a mind of its own, it seems to me. These drawings are beautifully done. They're not mine, but they're beautifully done. I admire the artist, but you can kind of see the kind of watery appearance of the colors, how they blend together. There's a little bit of precision, but not a lot of precision in the media. So you need to kind of practice with this. Do a little wall and kind of practice with it. It's and watercolor is translucent. I've had questions asked if you could use acrylic paint for this process, but you can't. The watercolor is translucent, so the colors that you painted the wall or the structure or the rolling stock show through this. So it lets the base color show through. Like you're doing a painting, you wet your surface. If you're doing watercolor painting, you wet down the watercolor paper, then start your process. It's the same process with the model. You wet down the wall with some water. I put just a little bit of alcohol in it to kind of help break the surface tension. And then I work in about a 2 by 2 inch area at a time so it doesn't dry out. And then you begin to add the wood, the color for the wood. Raw sienna, umber, and black. And you have to go very easy on black. It is very strong. A friend of mine was an architectural delineator in St. Louis, where I worked up there. He never used black in his paintings or his drawings. He always made dark colors with blues and browns and anything but black, but he never used black in his drawings. And I kind of understand why. It's pretty potent. So you have to go very easy on the black. The raw umber, no, the raw sienna. Raw sienna helps, for some reason, some chemistry in the raw sienna helps break the surface tension down. So I kind of use a lot of it as a dab. I'll dab it with the burnt sienna or the raw umber or the white even, and start my coloring with that. I'll come in with white every once in a while and put kind of a direct hit. It's kind of the opposite of the black. It's hard to see and hard to work with, but I'll put a direct hit of the white almost without wetting down the paint itself. Just drop it on there, and since the surface is wet, it will thin out and wash down the wall. And that white kind of represents a bleached area or effervescence or something on the efflorescence on the surface. And you always work in the direction rain would flow. You go down the wall, or don't go back and forth or sideways, or on a structure or a piece of rolling stock. Always move in the direction that water would flow, the rain would flow. And like I said, the raw sanding helps break the surface tension. So I use it quite a bit to kind of get the paints to loosen up and put them on there. And here's the finished product. On the left is the little weathered wall with the watercolor technique. As you're doing it, you'll notice some areas, like you can see up toward the top, a lot of the raw sienna is showing through, kind of the golden part of the wood is showing through there, and you might want to go back and enhance those areas. These things develop a character of their own, so you kind of work with them, get the colors on there, and they begin to talk to you, and you kind of begin to enhance areas. Down the corner was and along the bottom where the rain would splash up on this and kind of really begin to rot the wood. It gets a little bit more black, the darker colors along the bottom. And of course, same technique for the painted wall, for the clapboard siding walls. Just put the water on and begin to work your colors on there. And like I said, the black is very potent. You can see up in the left corner there that I put too much on. And it's forgiving. You can come back, you just put some water on it and thin it out so it's not quite as strong. And you get a lot of water on there, you can take a paper towel and kind of mop it up so that it's very forgiving. You can come back and change it if you're not happy with it. I'll do that often. I'll do the watercolor, it'll dry, and you kind of see what you have and say, oh, I need a little more white over here, or that's too black. And you can come back and put water into it and loosen it up and change the color. And here's a direct hit of white to kind of represent maybe a bleached area or some stain on that wall. And here's our little yellow shed, our scratch-built shed, finished. Same technique. Along the foundation for this is some styrene stone, so it was painted in a similar technique. The roof on this is Kleenex applied with local weathered black, so that's the tar paper roof. And here's our little kit-built shack. It doesn't look quite as plasticky as it started out. Pretty rough. Okay, this is kind of this. If you're still awake, this is the kind of a new technique I came across just in the past few weeks here. I bought this AHM, I think Pola actually makes it for them, but a ruby basin trestle on eBay many years ago, and finally getting a layout started where I could use some of the parts from it. And the kit comes in this brown styrene. See that platform on the left there? Now that's the standard color of the kit. Well, the guy that I bought this from apparently started it, and he had primed everything with this gray. I don't know if it's flocal, it might have been by then, but it's just kind of a nice light gray color. And he had painted all the parts and begun to kind of glue it together and got frustrated, I guess, and decided to sell it. So I was beginning to add the texture to it, and noticed that it was looking pretty good the way it came out. This was just, what you see on the right is just the saw blade going across this primed brown styrene. And some of the brown began to show through the original color, and the white was just the effect of the blade on the styrene, I guess, because you can see the edges, the board, or the timber there, it's got this white edge. None of this is paint. This is all just the process of taking the saw blade to that styrene that had been painted with the primer. And so it saves a lot of time. You don't have to water, you could if you want to, you don't have to watercolor or do any more painting. It's almost ready to go. Added some joints, a lot of these kits are a little too perfect. There were no joints between the styrene. So I added some joints and some NBW castings and kind of finished that on. So that's kind of a new technique. But the base kit has to be brown. So don't have any handouts, but the basis for this was an article that was in the HON3 annual several years ago, and it's still available online. So some of these images, a lot of the images are not in that article, but the techniques, the verbiage is there. So that's pretty much it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at bob_brendle@yahoo.com. If you decide to try the technique and get into it and need a little guidance, let me know, and I'll be glad to see if I can help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. That was great. We sure appreciate it.
Hey, Bob.
Stop share. There we go.
Hey, Bob, it's Dwayne.
Hi, Dwayne.
Bob and I have done a series of clinics. We did them first at Division III, well over a decade ago. We've done them, actually we did them for Mike at his LSR convention over in Arlington, but we did a set of clinics on wood versus styrene. If there's some interest in that, I'm sure we could talk Bob into, we'll find another structure and do that again. It's a lot of fun. We do some of the modeling right there live during the meeting. Obviously now with the cameras and the big screen and all that, we can actually get you a little more up close and personal with what we're doing. But basically in that, we sit down, we pick a building, and we each build the exact same building from scratch. Myself in wood and him in styrene, and we talk about the pros and cons of it. You'll see some more of what Bob's done with this presentation. You'll get to see him do it live, and you've seen the stills of it. Seeing it done live and watch it come to life is really, really cool. But you get to see some of the pros and the cons of working with either media, and they're a lot of fun to do. So if there's some interest in that, let us know. I'm sure we can talk Bob into doing that one again.
Sure.
We have a lot of fun with that.
Dwayne.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You might want to also share with Bob the use of the AK Interactive pencils, water pencils.
Yeah.
Those are great.
Yes, they are. Bob, I don't know if you've seen those yet, but AK Interactive, they make a lot of paints and weathering materials for military modelers. They have a line of what they call their weathering pencils. You can buy them in smaller sets, but it's more economical to buy the big set. And it's not quite 3 dozen pencils, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
A little over 2 dozen. But they're watercolor, and they're all weathering based colors. And some of the effects you can get out of those are really neat. You might want to give those a look.
Yeah, the thing I liked about it was better control. You were talking about the water and the watercolor running, and it has a mind of its own.
Yeah, it does.
You can get some of that mind back with the pencils.
Yeah.
I'll look into those. That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
So Bob and Dwayne, did I hear you say that my investment in acrylic paints in a tube is headed for the shelf or the trash can? Buy watercolor stuff?
For the weathering, yeah, the acrylic tube, the acrylic paint is opaque. You know, you put it on there and it's opaque. So you need the watercolors, like the Cotman water. I don't own stock in Cotman. It's just some that I found, and they're cheap or cheaper. Some of them are pretty expensive. So that's how I kind of gravitated to that one. But it's translucent. You know, when you're working in the watercolor, if you're doing a painting, the brightness is not the paint, it's the paper, you know, the white paper that shows through. So those drawings I had with that showed the watercolor, all that white is actually the paper you're seeing there. So it's not a layer of paint on top of a canvas. It is kind of a film, you know. So yeah, you need the watercolors, unfortunately, for the weathering steps. They're fine for painting the wall, the base color, but not for the weathering.
Yeah, I use tube acrylics for some of my general painting too, and some dry brushing. But yeah, for the weathering piece of it, you're definitely going to want the watercolors. And I don't know how y'all's screen is arranged with everybody's pictures on it, but Michael Corley's got a great Frisco piece in his backdrop, and Mr. Bob Thomas is right next to him, who has stepped away, but his whole screen is another Frisco line. So I got to raise a thumbs up to a couple of guys with some class, taste, and distinction.
Yeah, Bob Thomas has got his T&P up now.
Yeah. Well, not as cool, but we'll take it.
That's a picture from Deep Ellum down in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
An old building up your way.
Being from a long-running three generations worth of Frisco family, always appreciate a good Frisco modeler. So.
Mike, can you share with Dwayne the changes that have taken place over at the Texas Western, so that he can find some joy in what's going to happen over there with the Frisco?
Hey, so I got a question before we leave. Brendle, Bob Brendle, Mike.
Okay.
This is Brandon.
I've got one for Bob. I'm curious on the sandpaper if he's using a light or heavy grit. And
Light.
then with the passes, is it real light or are you putting down a lot of pressure?
For the sandpaper, it's pretty light. It's just to remove the fuzz. When you take the razor saw to the styrene, creates a lot of fuzz. It's kind of unprototypical. So that's the only reason I use that, to kind of knock some of that down. The distressing brush or the fiberglass eraser does about the same thing. The distressing brush is actually intended to put texture into it. So I've never used that one. I just know that some people have bought that, and I recommend it because of the bristles that are painful. And what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Dick Brannon, what was your question? You're muted again, Dick.
Yeah.
Huh?
Now you're clear. Go ahead.
The second part was how much pressure you're applying with that sandpaper. Are you trying to get some serious texture to it, or are you just lightly brushing over it?
Oh, no, it's just kind of going over it. It's not adding the texture. Most of the texturing comes from the razor saw, and then a little bit would come from the distressing brush or the fiberglass eraser. Everything else is just used to kind of clean it up, because it is pretty messy.
Okay, Dick, what was your question?
Yeah, you've been talking with Bob's presentation. I'm confused on something. You guys talk about acrylic paints and watercolor paints. Is there a distinction? Because both are water-based, is my understanding. So are watercolors different than acrylics?
Yes, the kind I use, the Cotman watercolor, those are artist watercolors. And
okay.
It's a different, acrylic is just a base for the paint, and you can paint your house with acrylic paint, or latex, but the watercolors is a different, it's water-based, but it is a different kind of paint. And it's.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Sure. It's an important distinction.
Any other questions for Bob Brendle?
I'm going to add just a slight bit to that and say acrylic is basically an opaque color, and watercolor is a transparent color. So when you paint with opaque or paint with acrylic, it's like painting with oil paints. It goes on and you don't see underneath it.
All right. So, Mr. Corley, you were going to share some things. If there's no other questions for Bob, just a little filler here before we get up to noon here. Corley, tell Dwayne what's going on with the Frisco since he brought it up.
David Crumpton is here, and he would probably be better since he's the president, but I can, as a Frisco guy, I can tell you what we've been planning. So what would you like me to do?
Yeah, just tell about the plan and this, that, and the other. And if David has something he wants to add, he can chip in.
Okay. The Frisco ran certainly in our area in Dallas and Fort Worth. And the phase 2 and 3 of the Texas Western included some Frisco equipment and tracks and all that kind of good stuff. So the good thing is that we have researched and designed now that's been proposed to the club, vote on it next month, to put in the West Yard or 8th Street Yard, as well as the North Yard and the City Yard, plus the Frisco Freight Depot that's located across from the TNP Freight Station. So Frisco, and also livestock operations that went into the stockyards. So there's a lot of fun coming for Frisco modelers. Come join us if that's one of your passions. We'll have a lot of fun.
Well, I'm a narrow gauge guy by heart, but I'll tell you what I'll do as a thank you to the Texas Western for letting us have our division meetings over there. If you guys would like to do that Frisco Freight House and would like to have it laser cut, let's work together on that, and I'll cut that for you guys on the laser.
You're the man. I appreciate that.
So,
just as an addition to what Mike said, if you're familiar with our layout, and if you can picture the area of the layout that faces what we call the electrical room and the restrooms there by the kitchen, that side, what was going to be a Texas steel area right around the curve, and also we had planned on putting in the Fort Worth Federal Records and Army Depot, which both buildings are interesting, but we didn't think it was near as interesting as having an actual Frisco yard and then an area down from the Frisco yard headed into the Helix, where we're going to have a track that's going to come off and go through the layout that would simulate a Southern Pacific route going to Houston. And along and through that area, we're, instead of having a couple of Fort Worth Army Depot Federal Records buildings, which are really long buildings and they're just warehouse-like, we're going to have a lot of neighborhood structures of the time in 1962, a gas station, a grocery store, and make it a lot more interesting along that whole wall area. And Mike's going to have probably, I would say, a 4 to 6 track area for the Frisco yard. So we've redesigned that area to make it look a lot more interesting. At our business meeting last Thursday, it was voted on. Those changes were voted on and accepted. So we'll be going forward with that. Mike alluded to some other voting for some future enhancements and building on phase 2. That's yet to be voted on because there's still a lot of ideas coming in, timelines and other things like that. But we're happy to give a nod to Frisco because they needed to be there. Plus the changes are going to be a whole lot more interesting for people to look at. We've already got one steel mill. We really didn't need another one on the 53-inch level. So anyway, kudos to Mike for having Frisco blood in his veins so that we can tap those veins and get him to help us design and build a really, really nice area. Oh, and by the way, for those of you that didn't know, last Thursday night, Mike Corley was made a lifetime member of the Texas Western. So congratulations to Mike on that.
Yeah,
well deserved, and I think he was pretty surprised.
That was really
and very happy with it.
Mike, were you surprised?
Oh, I was stunned. There are only 3 of us now that have lifetime memberships, and that's over what, a 20-year something period. So I was stunned and humbled by it, and most appreciative for the recognition.
Good deal. Mr. Hager, please look in the chat box. Anybody else have anything that you wanted to pop in here?
Actually, I do have one quick question for Mr. Crumpton while we've got him on. There was some talk originally with the new expansion going into the meeting area where we normally meet, but there was some talk about enclosing that back porch. Is that still underway, or do we know what we're going to do there?
Well, that's one of the things I'm going to talk to Venus about. We would love to enclose that back porch area, and I'm going to talk to her about how interested the city might be in funding that and helping that be pushed along. And if they're not really wild about paying for it, we're going to take a look at option number 2, which might be to let us get the building permits to do it and use our own labor to enclose that. There won't be any plumbing. There'll basically be an enclosed block structure with some windows and some electrical. So That's one thing that we're wanting to do so that we can, as we expand the layout, still have a lot of room for meetings, because that add-on on the porch would be a big meeting area with a structure building room also. So before we start eating up our layout and decreasing decreasing meeting space room, we're going to look at a lot of other options before we start putting down more layout, because we've still got a lot of work to do on phase one.
Yeah.
We main thing is we still want Division One meeting there. That is a great opportunity for us to have people come looking at what we're doing. And so before we start eating up meeting space, we're gonna see what our options are with the city of Forest Hill.
Yeah. I knew there'd been a lot of things talked about, so I thought I'd ask while we were kind of on the subject.
Good question, Dwayne.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And David, we appreciate the hospitality of the club too.
Oh, you're welcome.
Over there.
You're welcome. We can't wait to get everybody back in there again.
Yeah. So I think things are starting to turn the corner. Again, like I said at the start of the meeting, we'll probably look at the first of the year just for and see where things happen in the next 90 days, 90 to 120 days. I will tell you this, that the Plano Train Show is scheduled for execution the third week. Is it the third weekend, I think, of January?
I think it's the 16th and 17th of January.
Yeah.
16th and 17th of January. Okay. So that train show will be the first train show coming back online, I believe. There's one in Temple this month, but it's a small show at best. There's 6 or 7 vendors going to be there, and basically it's an open house for their layout down there in Temple at the Santa Fe Depot and Freight House down there. So, but the Plano show should be the first show coming back online. So that'll be a big thing. Just so that everybody's aware, the Plano Center has set up guidelines that they normally have a capacity of 4,000. They have reduced that due to COVID to a capacity of 2,500 per day for the show. The Plano Train Show typically draws a total, the best year we've ever had, we drew 2,300 over 2 days. So I don't think it's going to have an impact whatsoever on the draw and the participation at the Plano Train Show by limiting the number of people that are coming in there. So I think we're in good shape. I think we're going to have a good show. And I'm going to be talking to my boss about having Polyprinter be having tables up there and get that set up again like we did last time. So we can go from there. Guys, it's 11:58. Anybody else have anything else they want to throw in here that we haven't talked about so far? Raise your hand, unmute yourself, throw it in. Nobody? All right. David, did you want to toss something out? I know you were bringing up that drawing of the Santa Fe station. Did you have something you might want to unmute yourself? There you go.
I got a question for David Crumpton. When are you going to be at the club today?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Also, David, speaking of being at the club, the things that I told you guys at the meeting last Thursday week, I guess, that I was going to print for you guys, I sent those with Jim Archer.
Good.
So he's got those in his possession to deliver to the club.
Good.
Those signal boxes and battery boxes that go beside the signal boxes.
Oh, super, super.
So you got 50 of each.
Well, you put them in good hands. I know Jim will make sure they get there.
Yep. And
he's
so
been doing a lot of great work for us.
So it's they'll be delivered as soon as he gets over there, I'm sure.
Good.
and they'll give them he can even give them to you or Chris Galvin. So,
Okay. Good.
okay.
Mr. Crumpton, would you like to remind everybody about the garage sale?
Oh, yeah, that's great. November the 7th, which is on a Saturday, at the club, we're going to have a garage sale that's going to run from 9 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We've got a ton of items that have been donated over the last few years that we've accumulated that we usually sell at the Plano Train Show. We've got a scad of stuff, all the way from beginner stuff all the way up to a lot of good advanced stuff and kits and cars and books and you name it. So we're going to have a garage sale and open it up to all of the area train clubs, the different divisions around us, and basically encourage our members, if they've got anything they want to bring up and sell also, they can bring up and sell so that we can pump some money back into our kitty, since we didn't have a Plano train show to earn us any income. I'm going to bring up a couple of guitar amplifiers if anybody wants to take a look at those, Dwayne. And so anyway, just kind of circle November the 7th on your calendar, and we'll be reminding you. There'll be some good prices and pick up a lot of cool stuff as well. If you know anybody that's starting a layout and just needs a lot of track and other beginning things, we'll have a lot of stuff. We'll fill it. We're going to set up tables inside, and we're going to set everything out.
David, I bet there's some things over there that Bob Brendle will want to come pick up for making plastic look like wood.
Oh God, we've got tons of plastic kits. Old plastic kits that probably you can't get anymore.
Yeah, those are my trade stock.
There you go, buddy.
Start saving your money now.
Yes, sir. That's Bob's bread and butter right there.
Oh, Bob doesn't need to save his money. He's got so much of it, he just starts at the back and starts back.
Hey, Donna. No, I'm in a Zoom meet for the train club right now, but it's just ending at noon. What's up?
You're speaking to us all, Mr. Corley. I'll go ahead and mute you there. There we go. So, guys, and the question came up again about the clinics. As soon as we go back to make and take, or go back to face-to-face meetings, we'll finish. We'll do our make and take clinics. So that's looks like it's probably going to be January is when we'll roll that out and go from there. That's what the plan is right now. And hopefully, David, we can have tables set up and do social distancing at the club starting in January and go from there. So,
yeah, who knew January 2020 was going to turn into January 2021?
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, it's like the cursed clinic.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks again for being here. You guys have been awesome. We sure appreciate everybody's participation. Hope you guys enjoyed the meeting. And step in and join Mr. Petrarca on Facebook and on YouTube this afternoon on NMRAX for all of the different things that you can find out there. You can go to the NMRAX and find out all about all of the different events that are going on. If you haven't seen some of that stuff, it's great clinics. Dwayne was talking previously about one that was given by our own John Lawrence and Miles Hale previously on the NMRAX, one of the presentations they did on signs for your railroad. I went back in. It's all online. You can go back in, review it, look at what you want to. Great stuff. And it's a good resource that we've never had before. This is all Gordy put this together. And he's done an outstanding job. And I think that if you guys so choose, he could turn the corner for our organization and lead us into the next big thrust about how the NMRA is going to be servicing our members and our hobby. So I know I'm going to give him my support for president. I'll let you make your own decision accordingly. You guys have a great Saturday, a great weekend, and
be on the lookout for the newsletter. Mr. Hager is going to be starting helping Mr. Galvin. And I think Mr. Hager's first issue is this coming issue. Is that right, David?
October.
October's issue. Yep. That'll be the next issue. So if you've got your articles, everything, still send it to Chris Galvin, and then he'll get it over to David, and then we'll get everything put together. Jim, you did hear me say you were going to be taking that stuff over to the club. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, guys. And Mr. Cranda, if you'll download our meeting off of the cloud, that'll keep our space going over there as well. I can't hear you because you're.
Hang on.
There you.
Okay, you're gonna have to do it for me since you recorded it. It's on the cloud at your end. We'll talk later. We'll talk later.
I can make it where you can download it.
Okay. That's
All
what
right.
you need. Yeah, you need to do it. To
I'll
help
do
me out.
that. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks again to Whit. Thanks again to Bob Brendle. You guys did a great job. We appreciate you being here.